What if the healthy foods in your fridge are actually fueling your menopause symptoms? Hot flashes, brain fog, mood swings, stubborn weight gain. Could your diet be fueling all of it without you even knowing? And more importantly, what can you eat instead to finally feel like yourself again? Today, we're counting down the 11 worst foods for menopause, backed by science, and revealing simple swaps to help you regain control of your body. Because here's the truth, during perimenopause and postmenopause, your body no longer handles food the way it used to. Hormonal shifts change everything, from how you process carbs, to how your body stores fat, to how easily you fall asleep. This isn't just about eating healthy, it's about eating strategically, to match your biology during one of the most important transitions of your life. Stay with me.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're zeroing in on something that affects, well, pretty much half the population eventually. Navigating menopause. And specifically, we're looking at how our diet, maybe even foods we think are healthy, could actually be stirring up symptoms.
Yeah, things like hot flashes, that frustrating brain fog, mood swings, weight gain, the usual suspects.
Right. So we've been digging into insights from a YouTube video. It's called The 11 Worst Foods for Menopause and What to Eat Instead, from the channel Menopause Health.
And our goal here isn't just to make a list of don't eats, you know? It's more about pulling out the why, like what kinds of foods tend to fuel these symptoms during this hormonal shift.
And crucially, what simple swaps backed by science can actually help you feel better.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get into the core idea, because I think this is really fundamental. What this source material highlights is that during perimenopause and menopause, your body just doesn't handle food the same way.
It really doesn't. Those big shifts in estrogen and progesterone, they change everything. How you process carbs, how you store fat, even how well you sleep.
So it's not just about eating healthy in general anymore, is it? It becomes about eating, well, strategically.
Right. Strategically for this specific biological transition.
Okay.
Because as those hormone levels drop, your metabolism often slows down. And maybe more importantly, your sensitivity to insulin tends to decrease.
Insulin.
Yeah.
That's the hormone that lets sugar into your cells for energy, right?
Exactly. Think of it like a key. And when that key gets a bit rusty or the lock gets sticky, glucose sugar stays floating around in your bloodstream for longer.
Okay. And that's when you start seeing things like the brain fog, maybe more anxiety, sleep getting messed up.
Yep, and that tendency to store fat more around the middle.
And this was really eye-opening. We saw a reference to a 2022 study suggesting that the exact same meal could trigger a glucose spike that's up to 42% bigger during menopause.
42%, that's huge. It means your body's basic reaction to the food you eat is fundamentally changing.
So what happens when you get those bigger glucose spikes? What's the fallout?
Well, it's a ripple effect. Those spikes trigger inflammation, which can make things like joint pain or that foggy feeling worse.
Okay.
They also lead to those awful energy crashes and intense cravings, you know?
Yeah.
And they can definitely amplify the classic symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, anxiety, memory issues. Because estrogen plays a role in managing glucose and fat storage.
Right.
So less estrogen means your system is less efficient at handling sugar, and you're more likely to store fat. It just makes you more vulnerable.
So if you've been feeling like your body is suddenly unpredictable, maybe even like it's betraying you, you're really not alone.
Absolutely not. The source material points out nearly all women experience some symptoms, and something like 60% report dealing with more than a dozen symptoms at once during perimenopause.
Wow.
It's a very real, physical, hormonal shift. It's not in your head.
But, and this is the important part, there's good news here.
Definitely. Diet is such a powerful lever you can actually control.
Food is information for your body, right?
Exactly. And when hormones are fluctuating and your body's more sensitive, those food messages matter even more. Making strategic choices can really, really make a difference.
And the interesting twist, which we'll get into, is that some of the foods causing problems might be ones you currently think of as, perfectly fine or even healthy.
That's the surprising part sometimes. So let's walk through the 11 foods highlighted in this deep dive as potential troublemakers. We'll break down why they can be an issue during menopause.
And give a simple, science-backed swap for each one. Something to help calm things down and support your hormones.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, let's count down, starting at number 11.
Kicking us off at #11, artificial sweeteners.
So things like aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, the stuff you find in diet sodas, maybe some protein powders, those sugar-free snacks, flavored yogurts.
Yeah, and it seems odd, right? No calories. But the issue highlighted is they can really disrupt your gut microbiome.
That ecosystem in your gut.
Exactly, which affects digestion, immunity, even your mood. Messing with it can worsen bloating, maybe even anxiety. Plus, they often seem to increase cravings, especially for sweet things, which can lead to eating more overall.
Right. Kind of defeats the purpose.
Totally, and they can fuel inflammation, making things like brain fog and joint pain worse. During menopause, when your body's already more sensitive, these effects seem to get amplified. They might intensify feelings of anxiety, bloating, fatigue.
Okay.
And there's even some research suggesting they might, over time, reduce your insulin sensitivity, meaning more glucose spikes.
Which is what we're trying to avoid. So, the swap.
Ditch the artificial stuff.
Right.
Use natural options like pure stevia or monk fruit in moderation. Or better yet, get sweetness from a small amount of whole fruit or maybe a couple of dates. You get the sweet taste without that negative cascade.
Makes sense. Okay, number 10.
Number 10 is non-fermented processed soy.
Okay, specify that. We're talking about things like soy protein isolate, soy flour, stuff often in processed foods or like fake meats.
Precisely. The distinction is important.
Wow.
These highly processed soy products often contain concentrated phytoestrogens plant compounds that mimic estrogen.
Right.
In these concentrated forms, there's a potential concern they might overstimulate estrogen receptors, especially when your own estrogen levels are fluctuating wildly.
Okay, so it could add confusion to the system.
Potentially. Plus, the source notes that conventional soy is often grown using glyphosate, which some studies have linked to hormone disruption. And unlike traditional fermented soy, these processed versions lack the gut-friendly probiotics and fiber.
So what might that translate to, symptom-wise?
Could be increased bloating, maybe more irritability or mood swings, possibly interfering with your body's natural hormone rhythms.
So the swap is pretty clear then.
Yeah, lean towards organic fermented soy. Things like tempeh, miso, natto. They're much kinder to your gut, are good plant protein, and the phytoestrogens are in a form that might actually be helpful for some women in moderation.
Got it. Fermented is key. On to number 9.
At #9, excess caffeine.
The morning coffee ritual. Or maybe black tea, energy drinks, those pre-workout formulas.
Yeah, things that give you that jolt. Now, a little caffeine might be fine for some, but too much can be a real hormonal stressor during menopause.
How so?
Well, it spikes cortisol, your main stress hormone.
Okay.
Higher cortisol isn't just linked to feeling more anxious, it also signals your body to store fat, especially around the belly.
Right.
Caffeine also messes with sleep. It interferes with melatonin, leads to waking up more during the night, which means more fatigue the next day.
Vicious cycle.
Totally. It can also worsen things like heart palpitations, trigger sugar cravings. And the thing is, as estrogen drops, your body just seems to become more reactive to stimulants like caffeine.
So it hits harder than it used to.
It seems that way. It can really contribute to brain fog, fatigue, those mood swings.
Okay, so what's a smarter swap if you need that morning ritual?
You could try matcha. It has L-theanine, which kind of smooths out the caffeine effect, or rooibos tea, which is caffeine-free, or even a really good quality decaf.
And if you really want that coffee.
The advice is maybe limit it to 1 cup, have it early in the day, and this is important, have it with a balanced breakfast. That protein and fat can help buffer the cortisol spike.
Good tip. Okay, number 8.
Coming in at #8, high-glycemic foods.
These are the quick-burning carbs, right? White rice, white bread, French fries, sugary cereals.
Exactly. Foods that score high on the glycemic index, meaning they cause a really sharp, fast spike in your blood sugar.
Like white bread is around 75 on that scale. Cornflakes are even higher.
Yeah, compared to something like a sweet potato at 44 or lentils way down at 32, the problem is those sharp spikes are always followed by a crash
Leaving you tired and irritable.
and craving more quick energy. It also tends to worsen belly fat storage and throws off that delicate insulin and estrogen balance, making menopause symptoms feel even more unpredictable.
So the simple shift is just choosing the lower GI versions.
Pretty much steel-cut oats instead of the instant packets, 100% rye or sourdough bread instead of white, brown rice instead of white.
And pairing them helps too, right?
Definitely. Having carbs with healthy fats and proteins slows down that sugar release even more, stabilizes things.
Makes sense. All right, number 7.
At #7, we've got alcohol.
Even that seemingly harmless glass of wine to unwind.
Yeah, it seems even small amounts can be surprisingly disruptive during menopause. It directly messes with your sleep quality, making night sweats more frequent and more intense.
Oh, interesting.
It also raises cortisol levels. There's that stress hormone again, and it puts a strain on your liver. Your liver needs to process and clear out used up estrogen, and alcohol can slow that down.
So it contributes to hormonal imbalance.
It can. Plus, it often leads to blood sugar crashes later on, causing mood swings and that awful next-day fatigue. It's also a known contributor to stubborn belly fat and can really amplify feelings of anxiety or sadness.
So what might have felt fine before might hit differently now.
Exactly. Your tolerance likely changes.
So finding a different way to wind down is key.
Yeah, maybe sparkling water with lemon or some mint, unsweetened kombucha could work. Or just a calming herbal tea in the evening.
And the source suggested cutting back is one of the fastest ways to feel better.
That's what was mentioned. Potentially better sleep, feeling lighter, maybe more hormonal stability fairly quickly.
Okay, noted. Number 6.
Number 6 is frozen and prepackaged meals.
Convenience foods. Frozen dinners, microwave burritos, instant soups. We all use them sometimes.
But the issue highlighted is they're often packed with sodium.
Leading to bloating, water retention.
Right, and blood pressure issues for some. They're also usually full of preservatives, unhealthy trans fats, and various additives that can potentially interfere with hormone signaling.
And probably low on actual nutrients.
Generally, yes. Low in fiber and the good stuff your body needs. So you eat them, but you don't feel satisfied, and you end up craving more junk later. And remember, in menopause, your body's more sensitive to inflammation and blood sugar swings. These meals can be like a double whammy, potentially making fatigue, skin problems, and weight gain worse.
So the convenient swap.
Batch cooking. Make big pots of veggie-loaded soup or stew on the weekend. Cook up some lentils or roast vegetables. Freeze portions.
Oh, you still have quick meals, but they're homemade.
Exactly. Convenience without the hormonal chaos.
Good strategy. Okay, halfway there. Number 5.
At #5, let's talk about ultra-processed packaged foods.
This feels like a big category. Packaged crackers, lots of snack bars, processed cheese sticks, deli meats.
Yeah, basically things with long, complicated ingredient lists. The source calls them metabolic landmines during this phase.
Why so harsh?
Because they're typically loaded with artificial preservatives, flavorings, refined oils, starches, and often lots of hidden sugars. All things that tend to spike inflammation and insulin.
And you mentioned digestion gets more sensitive too.
Right. So these can leave you feeling bloated, foggy, moody, and kind of stuck in a cycle of cravings because they offer very little actual nourishment.
Okay, so what are better grab-and-go snacks?
Simple, whole foods. Hard-boiled eggs are great. Slices of avocado. A small handful of raw nuts or seeds. Fruit with a spoonful of nut butter. Hummus with veggie sticks.
Things that give you clean protein, healthy fats, fiber.
Exactly. The nutrients that help stabilize hormones and keep those cravings down. The rule of thumb mentioned was, pick foods that don't need an ingredients label or have a really short one.
Simple advice. Okay, number 4.
Moving to #4, refined vegetable oils.
Like canola oil, corn oil, soybean, sunflower oil. The ones used in so many processed foods and often for cooking.
Yep. The main issue is they are highly inflammatory, and inflammation tends to rise during menopause anyway due to the hormone shifts. These oils are also really high in omega-6 fatty acids, which throws off the crucial balance with anti-inflammatory omega-3s that your body needs.
Right, you need that balance.
Plus, the way they're often processed with high heat and chemicals can create unhealthy compounds. The end result. It might contribute to worse joint pain, mood swings, fatigue, and yeah, that's stubborn belly fat again.
So swap these out for
Healthy fats that actually support your body. Use cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil, especially for dressings or low-heat uses. Avocado oil is good for higher heat cooking. Ghee or coconut oil can work for really high heat.
So choose fats that work with your body, not against it.
That's the idea. Fats that help manage inflammation and stabilize blood sugar.
Got it. Number 3.
At #3, we have refined carbohydrates.
This sounds similar to the high GI foods, but maybe broader. White pasta, regular sandwich bread, pastries, sugary cereals again.
Yeah, there's overlap, but it's worth emphasizing. These carbs give you that super quick energy burst because they digest so fast.
But that's the problem, isn't it? The spike and crash.
Exactly. Big spike in blood sugar and insulin, followed by the crash that leaves you tired, irritable, foggy, and craving more carbs.
And it signals fat storage.
Vertically, yes, especially around the abdomen. And what the source highlights, again, is that in menopause, your body just doesn't handle carbs as efficiently. You become more insulin resistant.
So something that was fine before, like a piece of toast, might now trigger a much bigger reaction.
It really might. It could send your energy and mood on a total roller coaster.
So the strategy is swapping for slower burning carbs.
Right. Things like sweet potatoes, maybe pasta made from lentils or chickpeas, steel-cut oats, buckwheat bread, and always, always try to pair your carbs with some protein, fiber, or healthy fat.
Just slow down that digestion and glucose release.
Precisely. It's about being strategic with your carb choices.
Okay, getting close. Number 2.
Now, #2, added sugars.
And the source stressed this is maybe the biggest hidden threat, right? Because it's not just cakes and cookies.
No, it's everywhere. Sneaking into yogurts, ketchup, cereals, smoothies, salad dressings, you name it.
And why is it so bad during menopause?
Well, it causes those massive glucose spikes we keep talking about, direct trigger for hot flashes, anxiety, mood swings for many women.
Okay.
It also dramatically raises cortisol stress hormone again, which promotes belly fat and messes with sleep. And it's pure fuel for inflammation, making joint pain, headaches, fatigue potentially worse.
And because managing glucose is harder now.
The spikes and crashes are just more dramatic, leading to bigger hormonal shifts and energy swings. You really have to become a labeled detective. Sugar hides under names like evaporated cane juice, malt syrup, brown rice syrup, dozens of them.
So the swap involves getting sweetness naturally.
Yeah. Reach for fruit, maybe with some cinnamon, which can help with blood sugar. Make your own fruit compote with no sugar added. If you need a chocolate fix, a small square of really dark chocolate, like 85%.
And the takeaway message is pretty strong on this one.
Very strong. Reducing added sugar is described as possibly one of the most powerful things you can do to calm your system down, steady your mood, and feel more in control.
Okay, makes sense. And now,
Yeah.
the number 1 spot. It's the surprising #1.
And finally, the number 1 food group highlighted as potentially amplifying menopause symptoms, which might surprise some people, ultra-processed dairy products.
Oh, okay, this is surprising. Not just dairy, but ultra-processed dairy. Like flavored yogurts, processed cheese slices, sugary milk drinks.
Exactly. The stuff often marketed as a healthy snack or good for calcium.
So what's the problem with these specifically?
It's often the combination and the processing. They frequently combine sugar with dairy fats, which can be a potent mix for fueling inflammation and bloating.
Ah, the sugar-fat combo.
Right. Plus, they're usually loaded with additives, artificial sweeteners, thickeners, stuff that can irritate your digestive system and spike insulin levels. Compared to plain whole or fermented dairy, they offer way less nutritional bang for your buck.
So even if they have calcium, the other stuff might negate the benefits.
That's the concern. This combination can really destabilize blood sugar, potentially trigger hot flashes, and worsen digestive issues right when your system is already more sensitive. It's a sneaky category that can quietly make things harder.
Okay, so the swap isn't no dairy, it's better dairy.
Exactly. Choose less processed or fermented options. Plain Greek yogurt is great, add your own fruit. Kefir is a fantastic probiotic-rich drink. Or enjoy moderate portions of less processed cheeses like feta or goat cheese.
You get the protein and calcium without the added hormonal disruptors.
That's the goal. Get the good stuff without the chaos.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back from the list, what's the big picture here?
Well, looking at the whole list, you see a clear pattern emerge, don't you?
Yeah, lots of processed stuff, refined carbs, added sugars, inflammatory fats.
Exactly. Understanding that pattern and recognizing specific examples like the ones we just discussed gives you a kind of roadmap for making better choices.
It really does highlight the power of those small strategic swaps. You know, choosing the quinoa instead of the white rice.
Or the plain kefir instead of the sugary yogurt.
Using olive oil instead of that processed vegetable oil. It's not just changing one ingredient, is it?
No. Each time you do that, you're actively making a choice to potentially reduce inflammation, help stabilize your blood sugar, and create a more supportive internal environment for your hormones.
And this really pushes back on that idea that menopause just has to mean gaining weight, feeling foggy all the time, or feeling like a stranger in your own body.
Completely. It reframes it. Menopause can be a time of strength, of clarity, of feeling really empowered, especially when you learn how to fuel your changing body correctly.
It's not about being perfect all the time, right?
Not at all. It's about recognizing the things that have the biggest negative impact for you and making consistent, smarter choices that really add up over time.
So based on everything we've dug into today, maybe here's a thought to leave everyone with.
Considering how deeply ingrained a lot of these worst offenders, the processed foods, the hidden sugars, the refined carbs, are in our modern way of eating, what might happen if you consciously recognize and replace even just one or two things from this list? What could that reveal about your own ability to feel more in control, more yourself during this whole transition?